All right, so we've reviewed mean, median, and mode. We've reviewed stem and leaf plots, and we've reviewed box and whisker plots. Now let's move on to our last review on histograms. Now just about every group from our little flashcard activity matched the picture of a histogram to the term histogram. But just as a quick review here, I found a diagram of a histogram to help us review for these last 6 review questions here. So look at circle number 1. This is our title of the data, the title of the histogram, whatever we're trying to measure here. That's going to be at the very top. Moving on to circle 2 towards the bottom right, that's our x-axis. It's showing us what we are measuring, and it breaks it down into the bars, which is circle number 3. And how high those bars are based on our frequency over to that far left circle number 4. So in this diagram, if I was asking you how many of these operators were operating, or how many of these receivers were operating from 0 to 5 days before they failed, you'd look at the far left of our histogram here from that 0 to 5 range and see how high that pink bar is rising up. And that's halfway between the 0 and 20, so we'd say it's going about 10 days, and that's how you would read and interpret a histogram. All right, well, now let's move on to our last 6 examples here. We're going to look at number 11, parts A, B, and C. Number 11 says, the data in the histogram below represents scores on an algebra test. So if this teacher took all of their students' scores and broke them down into a histogram, here's how it could lay out. It could be similar to tests that we've taken in this class, but here is the histogram here. Here is our title. Let me see if I can highlight that for you guys here. Title of our histogram right up here. These are the algebra test scores. This is our x-axis, this is our y-axis, and this is our little range here. Notice how they're broken down in ranges from nines, from 51 to 60, 61 to 70, onwards and onwards. Now, part A is asking how many total students took the test. How could I calculate that from the graph? What do we think? Yeah, just add up all the bars. So then I need to find out how tall each bar is, and then I can add them up. So how many students scored in the 51 to 60 range right here? Yet the bar goes up to 2, so I had 2 students score in that range. Well, what about the 61 to 70 range? Yep, it's between 4 and 6, so we're going to say that it's 5, yeah. And then, 8 here. Man, y'all are fast. 12 here, and then 6 here. So I can punch those into my calculator and add them all up together to find out how many total students took this test in the Algebra 1 class. So what are we getting? 33 is right. Yep, there we go. 33 students took the test. All right, I'm going to erase this really quickly here. All right, on to part B. How many students scored at least a 71 on the test? Okay, so where is the 71 score, or what bar is that range of 71? Yeah, the middle bar, yeah. So there's the 71 right here. Whoops, let me actually circle that. Here's the 71 right here. So we know that 8 students scored between a 71 and 80. So is our answer going to be 8? No, why not? Yeah, because more people scored above an 80. So it's not just this data set right here, just that box. We also need to include this one. And yes, and the last one right there. So these 3 bars right here, these are all the students that scored higher than a 71. So we can add those up together, and yep, we'll get a 26. There we go. All right, now lastly, I'm going to erase these little arrows here and that circle. And now part C, last question. Can you determine the highest grade from the histogram? All right, well then let's go and look at our last box here. So we see that we had 6 students score in the 91 to 100 range. Do I know which is the highest? No, we don't. Now, why do we not know? Yeah, the graph is not giving us the exact scores. It's not like a dot plot or something like that. It's a range. All we know is that 6 students scored in the range from 91 to 100. We don't know exact scores here. So is there enough information from the graph, from the histogram? No, there is not. Not enough information. We cannot determine the highest score. All right. That's not a bad class. I mean, only 2 students failed. That's not too bad. Hopefully we have a class like this where hopefully the bars are pushed a whole lot more this way here, right? Yeah. All right. Last question here. Last histogram and then 3 questions here. The data in the histogram below represents revenue of the top 25 movies in a recent year. All right, let's go and interpret this again. Here is the title, Revenues of the 25 top grossing movies. Here is my x-axis, it's the revenue, how much money we're making in millions of dollars. So wherever you see a number, just add on millions to that. So this is anywhere from 61 million to 100 million. This range is anywhere from 341 million to 380 million. This is my y-axis, and it's telling me the frequency or the numbers of movies that grossed. Okay, so on to part A. How many movies gross at least 141 million? Well, this is really similar to what we had in question B here with the students who scored at least a 71. We went and looked at the 71 and looked at the 71, which was higher. We're going to do the same thing here with 141. So, yep, we're going to find the 141 right there, and it'll be this bar. I'm going to put an X right there for right now, and everything that's up above it. Now, we need to find out that bar of the histogram and everything above it. So how many movies grossed from 141 million to 180? Yeah, it's between 4 and 6, so 5. And then 1, man, y'all are fast. And then 2, and then another 2, and then another 2. So if we, excuse me, so if we add all of those bars up together, we see that there were 12 total movies that grossed at least 141 million. All right, part B, how many movies grossed between 61 million and 180 million? So this is similar to question A where we're starting small and we're going on down the graph, but we have a stopping point. It's between 61, it's at least 61, but less than 180. So we have a range to work with here. So let me go and erase a couple of things here real quick. I'm going to erase that. And here is my 61 at the very beginning, and we're going all the way up to 180. Which, yet it's that third line, that third bar right there. So now I need to find out how many movies were here, here, and I already know 5 were right there. So, yep, 4 movies, 10 movies. So 4, 10, and 5, you add that together, 19 total movies between 61 and $180 million grossed. All right, lastly, C, can you determine how many movies grossed between 121 and 140 million from the histogram? All right, let me go and erase a couple of things here. So we're looking from 121 and 140. All right, so where's 121? It's not on, yeah, it's kind of not on the graph. I mean, it's somewhere, right? It might not be on the graph, but it's somewhere in between, right? It's going to be like in between this 101 range and the 140. Now, do I know how many of those movies? All right, so some people are saying 10 and some people are saying no. Well, which is it? Do I know exactly 10 or maybe not exactly 10? Okay. Yeah, so that was a great answer. So they said over there that the 121 to 140 isn't the whole range of this bar. It goes from 101 to 140. What if all 10 of those movies grossed $110 million? It's still in that range, but we don't know if it's in between the 121 and 140 million range. So we don't have enough information. We do know there were 10 movies from the 101 to 140, but we don't know how many movies were between the range of 121 and 140. So the answer is no. Great stuff there, guys.